Hey guys, welcome to Boomer Live. As you heard, as it is God's plan, it was just God's plan that Australia do well against India after being 2-0 down in this series on this third test match which has been played in Indore. And I would say just God's plan that Marnus Labuschagne gets away all the bloody time. So we are going to be talking about it. We're going to be talking about India versus Australia. We were supposed to come live yesterday, but just not happened due to some technical glitches, of course, from our end. We sincerely apologize for that. So we are here. We are to be talking about how India have performed today. It's one of the most exciting day of play because we're close to 14 wickets fell on day one, and this is only the second most wickets which fell today because South Africa versus West Indies game had most number of wickets fall on a single day. So I think they have broken the record as well. So you just can't compete there. I just saw the pitch, and the first thing I asked was that a beach or was that a cricket pitch? Because I was literally shocked when I saw that ball turn on that first session of a play. And Nitin Menon once again striking as he definitely needs a sponsorship from Lenskart. And there's this company which is sponsored by Brett Lee for ear damage as well. I know it's pretty offensive, but I don't mind. So these two needs to sponsor Nitin Menon so bad because he has been absolutely out of sorts forever now. I really think he needs a sponsorship there. And if Lenskart and Brett Lee's company, if you're watching, Nitin Menon is your go-to man. You can put an ad campaign around him where he was absolutely giving poor, horrendous decisions, and after wearing specs, he's giving all great decisions. So there's an ad campaign for you, your marketing manager speaking here. But yeah, welcome, gentlemen, on the show. I hope you're doing all well. How did you enjoy Test match, Jaren? Jaren, you're eating a lot. You've got more time to eat, I feel, than talk. So let's start.
Yeah, I mean, I'm eating ice cream today as India's great performance. Very happy about. I mean, I'll be honest. It was a weird picture. An analysis that was done by Star Sports where of the good length, all the balls were hitting the bottom of the stump of the middle stump, and of the full length, all the balls were bouncing above the stump. So an odd pitch. It just seemed like there was
Thanks,
a
couple.
plan
Thanks, couple.
to.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, we did. If you guys do have to catch us, our football live, where we spoke extensively on Abel's haircut as well. But let's just talk about the pitch. I think the pitch was horrible. To be fair, for the first time in a long time, I found myself agreeing to Fox Cricket and Michael Vaughan. The pitch was bad. It was like a day 5 pitch,
Day 10,
and
day 10, day 10, day 10, not day
day
5.
10 maybe. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that analysis because that by the time Kuhneman came to ball with the new ball, it was turning. I mean, it was turning square, and I think it was just surprised that the Indian batsmen were taken by surprise, and by the time they were able to find an answer, it was almost half a side down. But on the other hand, you have to give credit to Australia. They did apply themselves a lot more, but they did have their time. They did. In many ways, India winning the toss and batting first was a boon for them because I think Australia would have struggled on this pitch otherwise, and Indian bowlers did help their cause as well.
Yeah, makes sense. My man looking at Memphis Depay. I mean, I
Ah,
got Anglo
there you go.
Korea. I think that is
There is
that is not bad. But talking about Australia, I personally think whoever batted first was going to find it very difficult because there was a lot of moisture on that wicket right after the play started on that morning. And I personally think, when you have a lot of moisture, fast bowlers will be in the game a lot more, something which you saw from Mitchell Stark. And similarly, what you saw from Matthew Kinnaman and Todd Murphy and also Nathan Lyon, who was able to generate a lot more out of the pitch compared to what Indian spinners were able to do. Something about your thoughts on that. Where did India really go wrong in terms of batting before we get to bowling? And so we lost. I think Jen, you can talk. You can take the question.
Yeah, I think in terms of if you talk about in terms of batting, right? I think Indian team were a bit surprised by the turn. Mr. Stark bowled an excellent spell, and how he did not end up with a wicket in that spell, it just baffles me. You have to give credit to Nathan Menon and probably even some of the horrendous review taking from Australia. They've been infamous when it comes to review taking as well. In the series against Australia, where they with Sri Lanka, when Australia had visited Sri Lanka, there was an incident where Chandimal had been dismissed
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they had lost all their reviews. And before that,
But
Nathan Lyon
don't you
and
remember that review against Ben Stokes, which is the most infamous review of all time, I believe?
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, this is something that's been going on for so long, Abel, isn't it? And the review thing has been horrendous. I think just like how they had to practice with Ashwin, an imposter Ashwin, maybe it's time they practice with an imposter Nitin Menon, just so that they can get
I think
get
that's
that
not the
win.
right way to go, man. Because Nitin Menon is the worst possible candidate there. There was a time, I think it was a decade ago, not even decade, I think 6 years ago, prior to COVID, how umpires used to actually train themselves. So I used to be in Abu Dhabi, and there used to be like Pakistan team used to come for training and everything. So what used to happen was, I think it was Aleem Dar, I think it was Aleem Dar or Asad Rauf. You guys remember Asad Rauf, that
Yeah.
Pakistani umpire who got into that sex scandal in India? So that umpire was the one. So what these umpires used to do was, prior to the game day, when teams practice, they also practice themselves. So they stand with the team in the net sessions. They actually practice whether these decisions go in their favor or not, and that's actually a good way. It did work for the longest period of time for a lot of good umpires. Alim Da, we remember him as a good umpire because of this reason. Similarly, even Simon Toffel, I've read in one of his book as to how he used to train with the players, not just in terms of testing cricket balls and throwing balls, just standing there in the nets, giving the signals out or not out. Ballers used to appeal and give that decisions. And these factors have gone missing in the recent past, at least for the last 4 to 5 years. And that is one of the reasons why we're seeing a lot more howlers take place. And now captains are extremely skeptical in terms of taking reviews. Today you saw Rohit Sharma really messed it up as well.
Yeah.
Sunny Mani, coming to you, I did ask a question on how India's batting was, but the biggest debate was answered when Shubman Gill walked out to bat for India. That means KL Rahul is dropped now for a while.
Yeah, I think it was a surprise, or not so much a surprise, because India has already retained the Border Gavaskar Trophy, but still they are aiming to win the series 3-1 nonetheless to qualify
Yeah,
for the World Test Championship finals.
yeah,
So I think you can fairly say that KL Rahul was dropped and Shubman Gill was picked ahead of him, and it was not an experimental sort of a decision. But and I think I love the way how Shubman Gill came into bat and started to play the way he did in the
yeah.
ODI and T20 formats. So I think he has been in sublime form, and it was only a matter of time when he got that opportunity, when he could have used a Shubman Gill ahead of say KL Rahul, who was completely out of form in Test cricket. And also not just that, I think with the way the pitch has been playing, I think India's batting was not too much of a question, because I think they have struggled in this series when it comes to batting. It has
Yeah.
been their lower middle order who has helped
Mm.
them and sort of revived their chances, and the bowlers are the only reasons why India are 2-0 up right now, because even in
Mm.
the second test India were trailing by 100 odd runs, 139 for 7. Akshay
Yeah.
Patel batting with the tailenders actually helped to stitch a partnership. Uh, and I think it was going to be a matter of time when the lower order was going to fail. But I think the pitch was absolutely a cracker of a pitch. India did not do too much wrong.
I mean,
It was
I think
all.
you can take that couples question as well, right? Because uh, you know, that makes a lot of sense. Because if the pitch is bad, how did Australia bat so well? And Australia
Yeah,
won
I think
54 at the end of the day.
it has always been stated, or people come out to say that the first session is when it is very difficult to bat on. The ball is new, in the first day, that is. So I don't really understand, but once the ball gets old, I think it gets easier to bat on, as we have seen in the past as well. uh, in the second session and the third session are the two sessions where the majority of the runs are scored. Even if you consider test outside India as well. I think players are a bit cautious early on. They just want to settle their nerves down and just get about the things. But I think they couldn't just settle. We saw Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill came out to bat with a particular intent in their mind, and both of them got out trying to. Okay, Shubman Gill was out with a pitch of a delivery, but Rohit Sharma, his dismissal could have been avoided. He wanted to take the attack on the spinners. Nothing wrong with that. Kuhneman playing his second test match, it was not going to be easy for him as well, especially after the outing that he had in the in the second test, that is in his debut. So it was going to be difficult for Kuhneman, and it was right for India to go after the bowling. And I think that is where Australia were very smart. They stuck to
Hmm.
their game plan. They did not try out too many different things. They knew the ball was staying a bit low, the ball was turning, the ball was gripping and turning, so they
Yeah.
just kept at it. And I think that is where consistency showed. And you saw India were trying a bit too hard. They were trying those fuller deliveries. I think it
Yeah.
was almost the entire time only thing I heard from Murli Kartik was India have been fuller, India have been fuller, which was getting up to a
Don't
certain
even get
point.
me started on Mulri Karthik, the commentator, because
Yeah, Murli Kartik
he's
has
just
been really
awful.
annoying me with Akshar Patel's batting and everything that he says. I
Yeah.
think it's
I mean,
starting to get.
he just gets like orgasmic feelings whenever he sees a left arm spinner ball. I don't know what
Exactly.
exactly it is on earth.
I
Every
that
time
that
he's like,
was.
"Oh my god, that is a left arm spinner! Look at the guy! Look at the glint in his eyes." I'm like, "Bro, are there other 10 players who are playing cricket?" Like he
Yeah,
just
so
goes mad every time he
I
sees a left arm spinner ball.
think yeah, the talk, there has been a lot of talk about India bowling
Yeah.
full, but that is what they were doing in the second test as well. It paid off for them in
But I
that
think
test. It did not.
for me, what went wrong with India today was, the pitch was a lot different from what we saw in the
Definitely,
previous
yeah.
games. In Delhi, the fuller length was a lot better for spinners, but today, for example, if you look at Kuhneman, right, the wickets that he got, it was all on the all making the batters play on the back foot, or
Yeah.
at least that back of a not a back of
Yeah.
a good leg for a spinner.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
instance, the one where Rohit Sharma stepped out was a
Yeah.
good line delivery.
Yeah.
Shreyas Iyer, and
Yeah.
those are the areas where the ball turned. But
I think also
from
Shubman Gill
And
got out
guys, I'll
trying
just
to
add
drive
a
the ball.
point to this. I'll
yeah,
add a point as you mentioned Delhi Test match. I think Indian bowlers were so prepared because there was a lot of talk on sweep shots, and Ashwin did a YouTube video just saying that you can't sweep your way out. So I think Ashwin, Jadeja, Akshar Patel, everybody thought Australians were going to come sweeping in that second innings, primarily because the pitch is going to turn square and pitch is going to turn a lot. So the only way in which they anticipate Australia to survive those overs from Ashwin Jadeja and Akshar was to come out sweeping, which did not happen today. Australia was so confident with their defensive shots. They decided to put that dead bad time and time again, especially Usman Khawaja. I really respect Usman Khawaja's evolution through this series because
yeah,
initially he looked absolutely out of sorts. Then he started scoring runs. He started finding a method for himself. Now this innings was probably one of his best innings in Asia, maybe better than what he scored in UAE and Pakistan as well. Because this was a real test against some of the top quality bowlers who were on top of the game. And that's where I personally thought him not trying to sweep, and when he got out, he did get out sweeping as well. So that was a very good move, a very good technique adopted by Usman Khawaja for this innings, and similarly for Manas Labuschagne as well. I mean, I will have to do a segment on how lucky Manas Labuschagne has been throughout his career. I was watching that Amazon series, right, on how
yeah.
Australia test, and so he puts an eagle under his bat, which is a Bible verse, which basically speaks about how you soar how you soar on the skies with as you're on top of the eagle, and how it is. And I was like, okay, great. And that particular innings where they were trying to telecast him, he got dropped 4 times. It was a day and night test match, Ashes, um, in Adelaide, if I remember, and he got dropped 4 times. And David Warner goes on to say he's the most luckiest cricketer I've seen in the world, and that crow under his bat is the reason why. So, I mean, it's pretty crazy, right? This guy has got all the luck in the world, man. He's got all the luck. There's something working for him, man. That eagle is just helping him to soar high.
And I think
Yeah,
also
man.
the thing that really went downhill for India is I agree with all the points that you put up, and also I think the scoreboard pressure. It's a different thing bowling in the first innings, and it's altogether different thing when you know that you have already had a go and you just managed
Yeah,
109 runs on the board to put up 109 runs on the board. So
yeah,
they were getting up. You bowl two deliveries. Australia has two boundaries, and suddenly you feel that there are not enough runs on the board to sort of put the pressure on the batsman, or to apply a certain game plan, and that is when you go on to try different things. But having said that, I think the Indian bowlers did a better did a good enough job as well with the ball. I think there was nothing wrong with how they went about with the ball. It was just good
yeah,
batting from Australia, sometimes
yeah,
a bit lucky. And also really feel that this it is going to get easier to bat on in the third innings. India are probably going to score in excess of 200, so I won't
yeah,
still put them out of the game right now, but
yeah.
I still feel a lead of 100 is going to be a tremendous task to
It's gonna be
climb. I
tough.
mean,
It's definitely gonna be tough
it's
for
going to be
India to
tough.
come out batting
I
because
think so. I think
you're
for
on the
me,
back foot at this point.
yeah, I think for me, what went wrong is if you look at Australia, right, they utilize the new ball really well. Their spinners
Yeah,
We're just on top of the game with a new ball, and that is where we saw with a new ball how difficult it was to play. But
Yeah,
once Labuschagne and Usman Khawaja were able to wither that new ball and were able to survive it, then it became very difficult for bowlers to really get anything out of the pitch, and that's where
yeah,
I think India went wrong. Initially, with the new ball in that lunch
yeah,
session, we felt Indian bowlers went for those glory deliveries, one
yeah,
which turns square, gets the edge, or most often
yeah,
that's afterwards when they tried to set the batsman up. I think it was too late, and then
yeah,
the game is really in the batsman's court, and you're
yeah.
expecting them to make a mistake. So for India to not be utilize a new ball is where India really, would you say, has taken a back step in this
I
match.
also think, especially when it comes to these conditions, you have a lot of pressure, as Sandeep rightly mentioned. And when you have conditions which favor you completely and the opposition team does well in those conditions, there's a certain amount of pressure which is completely put upon you even without you realizing it. And that's something which you did not see from the Indian bowlers in the last two test matches. For example, Australian spinners did not do far too greatly. That really meant Indian spinners had to set the tone as to this is the way to ball in these conditions. But today, what
Yeah.
happened was Australian spinners were outstanding. Matt Kuhneman, who's just playing a second test match, goes on to pick up a five for taking some breaking the back of your team. Now for Jadeja, he's been your best baller today throughout the day, especially when it comes to picking up wickets at least. But when it comes to Akshar Patel, is one of the biggest strengths has been just being consistent, just balling at one length. He's been going out of that. That's something which has really surprised me in this series as to why is he trying something which he's definitely not known for doing as well. Because if you look at Akshar Patel's progress as a test bowler over what 15 to 16 test matches he's played, it's always been about consistency in the lines, consistency in the lengths, where he doesn't try to tinker a lot with that particular length which he balls to right handers. But this series, he's been out of sorts. I think there's been a lot of pressure on him because Kuldeep
Yeah.
is also waiting on the wings. But as a
I think
batter,
but also
he's been exceptional.
it's double-edged, isn't it, Abel? Because now he's facing not only pressure from the fact that there's Kuldeep who's waiting in the
Yeah,
wings, there's also pressure of the fact that he'll probably get 2 to 3 overs to show that is going to take a wicket.
yeah,
Because if he is not showing, if he's not giving Rohit Sharma the trust that he's going to take a wicket, then all of a sudden maybe in the fourth over again he gets replaced by either Ashwin or Jadeja. So
yeah,
maybe in many ways, there's a pressure on Akshar to prove that he can be much more than just a rotational bowler, and that's the
yeah,
reason why he's put under that pressure to really go out there and do something miraculous. Because Akshar is again a bowler who is someone who likes to slow cook a batter, who likes to set a batsman up, and he isn't someone you will see bowl a magical delivery every over. He's someone who will set the batter up maybe in 3 overs, and then the fourth over,
yeah,
first ball, second ball, he gets a
yeah.
wicket. So I think that's where he needs to be little. I feel he needs to be a little confident with himself, because as far as I see, the Indian management is going with him because he can bat, and that
Yeah.
is an added advantage. And
Maybe today actually demanded four spinners in your team because
Yeah, I was
if they
just
would have
about
really
to
got.
bring that point. I was just about to bring that point because anyway, you are not bowling Mohammad Siraj. Siraj was instrumental in the first two tests. He was unlucky in the second test not to pick
Yeah,
up a wicket. But if you did not have a Mohammad Shami, I have nothing against Umesh Yadav. I think he deserves the chance that he has been
yeah,
getting, but not on
yeah,
this pitch. I think when you have uh, Indore, I mean, it was always going to be about the spinners.
yeah,
And with Kuldeep Yadav, you also have a bit of batting, and Umesh Yadav can also provide
yeah,
that. So you could have either dropped Umesh Yadav or a Siraj and brought in a Kuldeep Yadav, because anyway you are not giving your pacers enough opportunities with the ball. With
mm,
109 runs, even if India did not have 109
yeah,
runs on the board,
yeah,
even if
yeah,
India would have bowled first, I think
mm,
Umesh Yadav or a Mohammad Siraj would have only got that opening burst of spell, that 4 or 5 overs
mm,
that they bowled. Because even in the second innings, you will see that Rohit Sharma loves to open with Ashwin in the third
yeah,
innings or fourth innings whenever Australia is batting. So anyway, the fast bowlers don't get a chance to open the bowling in the second innings of the game. First innings of the game, it's just that opening burst of 4 to 5 overs that you're
mm.
giving the bowlers. And also with Mohammad Siraj, you don't have a lot of batting. So I think it would have been wise to sort of drop Siraj and get in a Kuldeep Yadav for
Yeah, I
this
mean,
game.
it makes absolute sense, isn't it? At the end of the day, when you look in hindsight, this was possibly the best opportunity for Kuldeep Yadav to come into the lineup, and this was the best shout at all costs. But unfortunately, that is not the case because they decided to drop Mohammad Shami, maybe to manage his workload or whatever. Considering the fact whatever is happening with Bumrah as well, they don't want to lose a fast ball at this stage, right prior to WTC. As to, we don't
yeah,
know, right? Nowadays with injuries and with NCA, everything has been going absolutely wrong for a fast bowler. And when it comes to rehabilitations as well, I think we should have a complete episode on that. But today, I think we'll be talking about aspect to the test match, and our first session actually changes test matches. Let's talk about tomorrow's first session. They're four down. Cameron Green is just new on the crease, and also Peter Hanscom. Tomorrow's a new day. If Indian bowlers can go and analyze and come back, and if there's any bit of moisture on the pitch, you reckon India can actually run through the Australian team and keep them right under 200 tomorrow morning?
I think for that, Indian bowlers will have to. For me, I still believe Indian bowlers could have done a lot better than what they ended up doing. I feel they did buckle up under the pressure, as you guys mentioned, that 109 runs. There was a certain pressure on Indian bowlers to make sure they restrict the bowling. But I think tomorrow, they should ideally come out with that feeling that, all right, we have already given the lead away. Let's try and do what we do best, and let's get them. Let's do what we do best, and I think that's where if India can trust their bowling, and maybe if Ashwin and Jadeja can just pull the length a little back. I understand that there's always this risk of being cut on the back foot, and no spinner, especially the likes of Ashwin. Ashwin just hates being played on the leg on the back foot. He always likes batters to play on the front foot, and I understand that's not his a natural length, but I think in this pitch, off the back foot, off the good length, there is something happening for spinners. There was a graphic today as well where we saw in the first session where when India were batting, when all the balls which were pitching on the leg stump, on the full length delivery were bouncing above the stumps, and all the balls on the good length were bouncing below the stumps. A bit awkward, and that's the reason why I felt Indian batsmen struggled. And so in a spin friendly condition where ball is turning, and especially in Asia, you always want to be hitting the stumps. And I think for me, maybe good length is the way to go because it can always put the Australian batters in two minds. So I think India should probably try and do that instead of trying and bowling full. So maybe that's the only way for them to go. And if they do that well, I still believe, because Australian batting lineup is not long. Mitchell Starc comes to bat after 7 wickets are down. So this is still an opportunity for India to get them at least below 200, 210, because 3 wickets tomorrow, and all of a sudden Mitchell Starc comes on to bat, and the lineup isn't that long. It's Nathan Lyon and
1 you can get 3-4 on this wicket. That's the beast about this wicket, right? There's a different beast altogether this wicket, because this wicket is a floodgate which is awaited to be open. Now, once a floodgate is open, you're going to see 3, 4, or 5 wickets fall in a cluster, and this is the kind of wicket you really worry as a batter or as a team, where you don't want partnerships to be broken, and you want to build partnerships. And if you break that partnership, the opposition always has got this chance of coming back into the game at any point of stage. And now also remember, you already saw the invariable bounce on this wicket. You never know. Invariable bounce is only going to get worse and worse from here on. It's not like invariable bounce gets any better. It's not. It has never happened in cricket. So it's only going to get worse. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why Australia will be even more upset at the fact that Steve Smith got out 5 overs to go for the day's play to end, because he was looking good.
Smith was always on the edge. That particular catch which came to Bharat right before that hit his pad and fell apart. So he was always on the nice edge.
It just seemed like, as the session came closer and closer to an end, it just seemed like Steve Smith was getting more and more on the edge, as you're speaking, because initially, at least early on, I would still say Steve Smith looked. I think Steve Smith is looking fine in patches, but what I really feel is there's a pressure from the Australian camp, or if not from the Australian camp, at least Steve Smith himself has taken up that pressure, where he feels he should be the one to lead this batting lineup. There was a press conference as well where he went on to say that he went on to say about his troubles as he had to go back to the pavilion after getting out. He feels he has not been doing justice to his team and his batting. So I think that's a little bit of a pressure he's putting on himself. But for Cameron Green playing his first ever match in in India, to have only faced 10 balls and to have come into a morning session, I think it's going to be very difficult for him. I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's a great player. He's someone who can get going very quickly. But there's going to be that morning blues, so as to speak. And I think that's where India will be a lot happier that they went in with Australia 4 wicket down rather than 3 wickets down.
So, talking about the Indian camp now, second innings is going to be very crucial, and most likely India will start their third innings of the Test match tomorrow by maybe by lunch or maybe before that as well. So, as a batter, maybe as Rohit Sharma, Shubman Gill, what will be going through the mind? Because it's so important for Shubman Gill now just to play positive cricket, because you don't have to do something out of the blue. Maybe the first task is definitely going to be to get that lead off your back. Maybe get the lead off with least amount of wickets conceded. India will be India would be loving it if India gets a lead with 0 wickets. Now that really means that India will be set for a big total. It's like 0 for 1 if India loses, even if it's 100 lead, and if India can get that into trailing by 1, and if India loses a wicket there, now which will make India believe, okay, right now we are going to start a innings afresh, and whatever target we set for Australia from here on is going to be a bonus. And of course, there's going to be a pressure of setting a target in excess of 200 or maybe at least 180, because 180 fourth innings, regardless of where you play, it's going to be really tough, isn't it?
Yeah, I think first of all, India would look to restrict Australia to the least amount of lead possible. I think anything in excess of 100 will be very difficult to sort of achieve, and to set a target in the fourth innings, it is going to be very difficult to
Yeah.
set a commendable target. So I think first task tomorrow for Jadeja, Ashwin, and probably Akshar. I think Ashwin and Jadeja will do the majority of the bowling early on. So I think the first task for them would be to get consistent, like Jerin mentioned. I think I felt India did a good enough job. They were unlucky on the field. They were unlucky on a lot of aspects of the game. But also, I think Jadeja bowling, picking up another wicket off a no ball. I think Jadeja should just push his leg behind. Come on, man. What is he doing? Third time in the series. Every test match he gives.
I mean,
And it's
don't
not.
you reckon, Sandeep, I have a very genuine question over here.
Yeah.
We've been talking about bowling coaches, we've been talking about coaches, their impact, especially when it comes to assessing the bowler, especially during net sessions. I've been part of a lot of teams, and I have one thing which I always realized is there's a free leeway which is given to fast bowlers or even to spinners that you can overstep in the practice sessions, and that
Yeah,
is
I think.
something which is such a bad thing to do. I have maintained it at least. So this is advice which I got when I was like 11 or 10. As to try to ball from behind the stumps, it'll help you increase your pace, and at the same time, it'll give you that confidence as to, even if you're like not using the crease very well, you don't have to be on the crease. You'll still give you that confidence. Okay, if I'm in the box, I can still ball quick, and that's something which I kept doing for a longest period of time. I should ball from behind the wicket, and that really worked well for me for a long period of time, at least during training. So when it comes to the match, of course, it did trouble me slightly with the lengths earlier on, but then I was able to adjust faster. Similarly, as bowling coach, I personally think it's about time our bowling coach takes owners in these kind of elementary mistakes. It's not the first time, because I'll tell you one thing: under this new regime, we've been unable to pick up wickets on the fourth innings in overseas test matches. I can give you 3, 4 examples.
Yeah.
South Africa, second test match. South Africa, third test match. England in that fifth test match, we were unable to finish off teams which we were so successful in doing it so, and teams to dread facing our bowling attack in overseas condition in their home ground previously in the last 6 to 7 years. After the leaving of Bharat Arun, there's been a drastic change in our bowling lineup and in our bowling strategies, and also when it comes to making these elementary mistakes time and time again.
Yeah, I think first of all, talking about the no ball, I think it should be a crime for bowlers to overstep on the match, given the amount of training that they go through in the practice pitches. And I totally agree with you. They should have a strict guideline as to, not just guideline. They should have a strict uh, law and order, and the bowling coach should be focused on the fact that the players are not overstepping in the practice matches. And I think if you go on to do it in the practice in the practice sessions, in the net sessions, you are more often than not bound to do it in the game as well. And for Jadeja, I think it has been a recurring mistake. He has continued to flirt with the no ball line time and time again. It's not something new, and it's not that he's picking up the wickets of the tailenders. It has been Marnus Labuschagne, it has been Steven Smith, all crucial wickets at crucial junctures. If Labuschagne would have been out at that point, I don't think Australia would have been in such a dominating position or a commendable position at the end of day one. I think with
Yeah.
12 for 2, Steven Smith coming into bat, the pressure of captaincy, the pressure of being the best batter in the team, it would have hit him, and probably India would have picked up another couple of wickets and probably could have dismissed Australia by the end of the day. You never know. So I think that was crucial, and that has been crucial for the Indian team no balls. A player that comes to my mind is I was just double checking, Ranadip Bose, the Bengal speedster. I think he had a record of not bowling a no ball for around 11 to 12 years of his playing career, and I think he had bowled around 10,000, 11,000 odd deliveries before bowling his first no ball, which is
Wow.
insane. And that's just the sort of discipline you should have. I think if you talk
I
about
mean, as a spinner, it's criminal, bro. I mean, I can understand if you're a fast bowler,
obviously,
you still tend to miss your run up at some stage because you're taking a long run up. But as a spinner, come on. I know Jadeja has got this tendency, if I can just demonstrate, he goes front and he drags his feet back, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
That
I think he
particular
brings
thing
his
has
feet
been going
something
against.
like this, like
Yeah,
a parabola.
yeah,
But I think for me, if you look at today's no ball as well, right? So the way that it goes is it's where your feet lands that you record the no ball, but and Jadeja's feet ends up landing like this and then comes
until
down. Like a
falls.
fast bowler's
yeah,
usually comes like this.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's more likely the
It's
fast
not
bowler.
your, it's
It's
not
not
your
a
back of
heel
the
which
feet which
hits.
is landing, which is your,
It's
it's
not
the
the
front
heel
of
which
the,
hits, it's the toes
yeah,
that
it's,
hits the pitch.
yeah, yeah,
And
it's,
that's where today, if for instance the rule was the one that was at the previous era, where if the once a baller releases the ball, that is where the no ball, the feet is checked. If that was the case, I think Jadeja would have been fine because his feet would have come
yeah,
down by the time.
yeah,
But this is not to say that the new rule is bad because I'm more in the favor of the new rule. I think that's
yeah,
more
same, yeah,
correct. But
yeah,
the way Jadeja balls, I think he's much more vulnerable to being a no to ball a no ball. So I think that's where the point that Abel mentioned is so accurate because it is said that practice makes you perfect, and if you're if you're practicing balling outside the tram line, then you're gonna make sure that you ball outside the tram line in a perfect way, like what
yeah.
Jadeja did today. So
Darren,
And not
I
just
will
that,
tell
I
you this
think
because
Jadeja
there is no
has.
coaching for no ball which is given in any of the academies, because I've seen a lot of these academies and coaches and none of them really give from a very small age as to you should be controlling and you should be keeping a check on the
yeah,
line.
because
And
I
it's a
think
mistake which
there
we
is a reason for
keep
that, Abel, isn't it?
doing.
Because when it comes to club cricket level or when it comes to school level as such, it's always the bowlers who are on top of the game, and then batters, because batters develop a lot later in their career, right? It takes time for a batter to develop than for a bowler. For example, a fast bowler develops mostly by his 20, 19 or 18. So coaches really give attention to that skill development. And most often than not, even if you ball a no ball in the school level or in a club cricket level, there is a chance that you'll still end up getting the batter out unless he's an extremely gifted batter, probably destined to go higher than a school level at least. So that's why the coaches at least at the ground level don't feel the necessity to do that.
Yeah,
But you're
yeah.
right, I absolutely agree with you. I think as a coach, it is important to look at every aspect of your pupil and not just the
I
side
mean,
which
I
is
would have been
faster.
fine if this was the first instance, because this had happened previously as well, right? Because at that time we were winning, everything went under the carpet, and that's one of the most elementary thing which you have been taught as you don't hide your mistakes when you're on top of the game, because that's the
Yeah.
only way you can get better. And that's something which I'm pretty shocked that India are not improving time and time again when it comes to making these mistakes on repeated basis, right? Now I
No,
would want to go back to,
If I am Jadeja, I would have simply put my stepping. I would have just dragged it 6 inches to the 6 inches backwards. I
you
don't
guys
understand
know
why
what,
he has to flirt with the
yeah,
drum line every time and again, because it's
yeah,
his natural. It's his natural run up. He can just probably by a shoe's length. He can go back a shoe's
absolutely,
length and then
absolutely.
start again. And
Absolutely.
that
Now, when we
one,
talk about Bumrah, right? Remember, Bumrah is most probably the most costliest no ball in the history of Indian cricket, where he got
Yeah.
Fakhar Zaman for 5 runs or 6 runs in the Champions Trophy final.
Champions
After
Trophy, yeah.
Pakistan, he went on to score 100. Even after that, Bumrah, for all the praise what we give him, he still continues to ball those no balls, and that's something which really doesn't make me understand why hasn't there been any correction. I'm talking about even about the previous regime, Bharat Arun, or now the current Paras Mamre regime, or whoever it is. There should be some bit of correction made to a fast bowler, man. I mean, let's talk about Arshdeep Singh, for example. Number of no balls this lad has been bowling time and time again. I really don't understand why has there been no correction, because these are controllables at the end of the day, right? Him getting
Yeah.
out, him getting hit for six, that's uncontrollable things. That's maybe a good ball, maybe that's maybe absolutely fantastic form of the batter. Those are things which are not in your control. But what is in your control is to not make this unforced errors in cricket, and that's coming to haunt you. Maybe it might even come to haunt you when it's a World Cup final at the end of this year. You don't want to be doing this in a World Cup final against an informed batter, and he comes to haunt you. That's going to really destroy your career as a player as well.
And not just that, with the course or the importance of the Border Gavaskar Trophy right now, I think it might even go on to cost India the World Test Championship final spot. You never
Yeah.
know. Australia can make a comeback, and it
Yeah,
was hard to see India win the toss, bat first, and then crumble like this. Because
yeah,
the only thing that I could that came to my mind was the Pune Test 2017, Stephen
yeah,
O'Keefe
yeah,
running
yeah.
through
I,
the
I had all that
top
vibes as
order,
well.
and I think Matthew Kuhneman and
Yeah, it was
I
like
think
Steve
his
O'Keefe
unknown
vibes.
commodity, yeah, Steve O'Keefe vibes, completely Steve O'Keefe vibes. And I think once
If that's
Ashwin
going to
and
be the case, then India are going to get all out once again under 100 in the 105-10 region, because that was a horrendous test match for Team India. And similarly, what happened was there was a lot of pressure on the Indian spinners even there. I remember Steve Smith went on to score a brilliant 100 in the second innings for Australia, and there was a lot of pressure on the Indian spinners to perform well because Steve O'Keefe had outballed from the expectations of what was supposed for him to do. And it was an unknown commodity. It was the first test match of the series, but now there's a third test match. You already know what Matthew Kuhneman is all going to be about. Even as batting, I really thought Indian team should have applied better in terms
no,
of
no,
playing.
I totally, I don't have any excuse for the Indian batters. I mean, 109, no, not acceptable, because especially because even in the first two games you had the lower order sort of taking out the apart from the Rohit Sharma innings in the first test, there has been no other top order batter who has consistently performed throughout. And I was listening to the commentary. People were saying that Virat Kohli was the best batter, was the best batter in the Indian innings. But your best batter can definitely do better than 20 odd runs. Kohli has been getting in
Yeah,
and
I
getting
mean,
out. It
he
has
got
started
out
to
to
become concern.
a nothing kind of a ball. I don't really think that ball did anything
But I
much.
think for me again, there's something that I've seen right with Indian batters. They seem to be struggling with that length, which is they seem to be struggling their leg stump a lot. We've seen that I think in the three test matches that has happened so far. Indian batters have got strangled down the leg side, or at least got out with that ball where the ball round the wicket and try and spin it from middle stump, leg stump. And again, unable to cover their leg stump. Virat Kohli again got on a similar fashion. Bharat got on a similar fashion. So a little surprised, and that's how Todd Murphy's been getting Indian batters out. So I think a little surprised in that sense that Indian batters have not been covering the leg stump, because you usually expected to at least cover your stumps as a good player of spin, and most Indian batters are good players of spin.
I mean,
Definitely.
yeah, that's a reputation which we used to carry for the longest period of time. But are we really the best players of spin right now in the world? I think it is not the case. Maybe at least the
I was
players
just
who are on the
reading.
Indian team.
Probably
I
I
guess
our
some of the
spinners.
domestic players are.
I think our spinners and the lower order batsmen are the best players of spin in the world right now. But talking about the top order, I think Pujara,
Yeah,
Kohli.
I was just reading an article, and the writer of the article called the Indian batters pampered, and I wouldn't be I would be saying that it's not far off, because I think the white ball format in many ways, those hard pitches in foreign conditions have molded our batters into batters who love playing pace a lot more, who have gotten used to playing pace, or gotten used to playing true paced wickets, and that's the reason why I feel they're struggling now in two paced wickets, as they're not getting that balanced pace or that balanced bounce, because I think that's where, as we have gotten better in Sena countries or countries outside India, we've progressively forgotten how to play in India as well as we used to, in terms of batting at least. I know it's become a lot tougher to play in India, that's for sure. And over the world as well, it has been difficult to play. Batting is not as easy as it was in 2010s. Scoring a century in this era is a lot more difficult. Bowling has become a
But
lot better.
Jaden,
But
you
even
have
then,
had players like Joe Root, Kane Williamson, and Steven Smith outside Asia who have been scoring runs for fun. But the
hmm.
Indian top order batsmen have not really, especially Virat Kohli. I mean, right now, if you talk about the Fab Four, I think Virat Kohli is lagging behind when it comes to Test matches, and I think he'll have to buckle up, because you had a phase from Joe Root where he was struggling to score a century in Test matches, and once that barrier was broken, you have Joe Root scoring centuries for fun, and just talk about the strike rate, which with you had a absolute, I think, one of the best games of this year. Definitely the game
Yeah,
between
I
England
mean,
and
one
New
of the
Zealand.
best games in Test history, rather.
Yeah, best games in Test
Yeah.
history. And you had Joe Root coming in under pressure, scoring 96 of 90, 110 odd deliveries, and then you have had players like Kane Williamson under pressure, following on, going on to score that century. Why can't our batters do that? And I think, talking about pampering, I think a lot of
I think, dude, it's got to do a lot with a larger issue at hand over here. When we are put under pressure, regardless of the format, we tend to crumble a lot more than what we usually used to do previously. That's something which I think there should be systematic change. I think some of them
Yeah, I think
really do play well under pressure. Maybe Rishabh
you're
Pant is the
spot
best
on there.
best example.
Indian team has been very good at has been very good when it comes to planning. I would still say to a great extent they are good at planning, but most often than not, problem solving has been an issue for Indian team, and I think that's been an issue for Indian team ever since. I mean, it'll be a cliche for me to say this, but ever since MS Dhoni stepped down from captaincy, or at least MS Dhoni's left the dressing room, because in terms of problem solving, whenever Indian team finds itself under the pump, there seems to be lack of creativity or lack of solutions, which team
I
finds
think
as
the
breakthrough.
word is creativity, Jiren. I think that's a very good
Yeah,
word because creativity is something which we don't talk about in a sport like cricket. But I think
yeah.
there actually has got a larger meaning to it than what we actually signify it to be. Because when we talk about creativity, it's maybe about trying something different from what is the norm. And I thought, maybe it could be about sending a lower order batter into the top order and telling him to, giving him that free hand of taking the ball around. And that actually
Nice
is
ball.
good enough in terms of that creative instinct, especially in a game where you're in the fourth innings, where you're chasing a low total and where you really want to do something out of the box, you
Yeah, so I
can
mean,
go on to
for
do it.
instance, England tried something out. You guys have heard of the Night Watchman. England tried something called the Night Hawk,
Nighthawk.
and it was Stuart Broad just coming in there and throwing his bat at everything, late down the order, not trying to save a wicket, but trying to break the ball in two pieces. So it's an interesting thing that England right now is like a cauldron of Test cricket ideas, and it's going to be it's very interesting how things are going out there. Many can argue the thing that happened to England in the fourth innings only happened because England were playing baseball, and but then that's how it works, right? It's a game when you chase to win, and
And I won't
something
complain. I
but
won't complain about baseball because it has been entertaining. At the end of the day,
yeah,
I think a lot of
I don't
people are
think
very
anyone
happy.
is upset with England
Yeah.
losing with that one run, because England fought, and you have to give credit to New Zealand when it
No,
was
I just
due.
want to ask you all, how many teams in the world on the fourth innings will go on to score 250 plus in any ground in the world, and will
Yeah,
even fight? And on that particular regard, I think England did a fantastic job. And if Harry Brook wouldn't have gotten out without facing a ball, maybe they would have actually crossed the line
England,
because that guy's
you look
another
at the
beast,
way
man.
James Anderson got out. 9 out of 10 times, James Anderson would have missed the ball, and
Yeah.
probably at one time, James Anderson would have played up. Would have got that inside edge large enough to beat Tom Blundell, go for four,
Yeah.
and we would have been looking at
Yeah.
another side of things where James Anderson is a hero once again. But
But
for
I
some
really
reason,
give it to I'll really give it to the Neil Wagner. He's such
yeah,
an
yeah,
amazing bowler. I think he's the most underrated bowler of this generation
yeah, he
because
keeps
the
coming at you. He's a total old traditional bowler. He will beat you for pace. He'll ball bouncers. He'll ball bumpers. But I think for some reason James Anderson ends up at the wrong end of the pitch whenever England lose a close call Test match. It's always him. I know there's always a callback to him and Monty Panessa saving that Test match. But how many times have we seen James Anderson being a last wicket before England getting wiped out in a Test series?
I mean,
And
it
also,
gave me all the
I
vibes of that
think,
Glenn McGrath
yeah.
bowling Andrew Flintoff Ashes 2005 vibe. But then I'm so glad New Zealand was able to pull out the result. As much as I love baseball, it has got its cons as well, especially when you're chasing, and especially if you're a
I think
very good team against them.
the follow
I
on was
would,
not right.
what I'm excited for the Ashes of this year. I know it's going to be in England. It's going to favor England a lot more. But an Ashes in Australia with baseball, if they can counter Australia with this plan in Australia, then I would say basketball is the biggest revolution in cricket history.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
and
think
also I
Australia and
totally
India
agree
would
with
be.
Jerin. I think the point where the game turned was the follow-on decision. I think
Yeah.
8 out of 10 teams would have gone on and batted once again and then put up a lead in
I
excess of
think
450,
the
500.
only reason why the follow-on was given is because England loves to chase, and under baseball, England doesn't like to
Yeah,
defend. England
yeah,
likes to
yeah.
chase, and England felt at max they will go 250, and they did. But England just felt 250 is something they can chase, and they should have chased. It was just good bowling from Neil Wagner. Neil Wagner was going at 8.5 runs, if I'm not wrong, in the first innings. And from there, he converted it into a spell, which is probably something we know Neil Wagner to do. He just loves bowling those short balls, scaring the batters. But the reason why follow on was the wrong decision at that point in time is because Basin Reserve, where the match happened, gets a lot better to bat in the second and third innings. So second, third innings now, when you're doing a follow on, what England basically did is allowed New Zealand to bat second and third innings. So the best chance, best batting conditions was given to New Zealand, and they capitalized in the third innings. So I think that's where a little unfortunate from England, a little lack of planning. They went ahead with their own strengths, which
Yeah.
would have been okay. But I think sometimes you need to be very careful with follow on, right?
And
You
also,
can
I
I
only
mean,
think
dude,
this
follow
I
follow
personally feel after 2002, right? After 2001, sorry, after 2001 Kolkata Test match, a lot of these captains have been extremely skeptical as
Okay,
to
okay.
whether to
So there
enforce
is
a
this
follow on or not.
interesting thing. I'm so sorry, I'm cutting you off there, but there's this
Yeah.
interesting thing that Jared Kimber brought up, where he said that according to his analysis, before 2002 and after 2002, same amount of follow-ons have been given out by the captain. So I think that is something that's a perception that's in our head.
no,
But
but I
Yeah,
think the point in
but
recent times.
even there, I think still a number of wins after giving a follow on is just four, man. It's once in a blue moon, right? It is
No,
not
yeah,
every time it
exactly,
happens.
but I
exactly.
think if you talk about 2002, I think then I mean the stats will definitely say okay, it's same number of follow-ons. But if you pull back the year to around to 2014, 2015. After 2014, 2015, you have seen a lot of teams being skeptical about enforcing the follow-on, and I think that
Yeah,
has got to do with the bowlers getting tired and them going out to bat in the fourth innings. That
yeah.
there are those are the two aspects I think which the captains won't prefer, and hence you have the even if you have a lead in excess of 250 to 260, you have the teams going into bat again. We have seen teams enforcing follow on when the lead is in excess of 300 350, because other than that, more often than not, you expect the team who has been put to follow on to come out and score those 250 runs and give you a target in excess of 100
Yeah,
150 more
yeah,
often than not, because you'll have the bowlers will get tired. They'll have to bowl two consecutive
yeah,
innings, and the longer the innings goes, the better it is for the batter, the player batter who is batting in the third innings. So all
yeah.
these aspects kept into mind, I think if you look into the stats of teams having like enforcing follow on since 2014 2015, you'll see a sharp decline, because I don't remember many teams going on and taking enforcing the follow on. Probably against a weaker opposition you will, but England versus New
Yeah.
Zealand with a
Yeah,
lead of
I think
250 in New
that's
Zealand,
where
you
you
won't
need
see
to
that.
really look at follow on in a different way, right? For you should only give follow on when you feel like you have completely destroyed the back of that
Yeah,
team, and that there's no way in hell that that team will make a comeback. And that's where
yeah,
you feel like, okay, fine, if the test match can get over in 3 days,
yeah.
4 days, then why should I go until the fifth day bat when I don't want to? But if you feel there's even a sniff that the opposition team has, you shouldn't go for follow on, because
I mean, it depends on the pitch as well. The state of pitch is very important. In New Zealand, you barely
yeah,
see
that's where
pitch
today
deteriorate
in
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 any way.
in yeah, that's what I said, Ravel, right? You had Basin Reserve, third innings and second innings being your best
Yeah,
possible innings to bat in Basin Reserve. With a new ball, first innings, the fresh pitch, it's very difficult to bat.
yeah.
And again, in the
I
fourth
mean,
innings, it becomes
that's been
uneven.
generally in New Zealand. New Zealand, the pitches don't
Yeah,
deteriorate like anywhere else in the world. Maybe
correct.
in Australia it does. Invariable bounce comes into play. South Africa it does. India, it's possibly the worst place to
I think
play
it's more
on
like
the first
England, isn't
innings.
it? Where on the first day the pitches are very fresh. There's a lot
Yeah.
of movement of the pitch, but the
Even
second
in
day comes.
England, Jen, the pitch tends to be a little uneven. There is a lot of rough which is created because in New Zealand, because there's a lot of grass which is left on the pitch. By the time it's third or fourth innings, it's more like a day two pitch or a day one pitch on the third or fourth innings. That's one of the reasons why third innings and the fourth innings is the best time to bat in New Zealand in comparison with anywhere else in the world. That's
But
primarily because of the number of
but
grass which is
yeah.
left on the pitch.
What happened with the Basin pitch was it was a little bit more flatter than what you usually expect with New Zealand. I think that's also a reaction to what New Zealand has suffered through in the first Test match, and that's the reason why in the second and third innings it became a little better to bat. But the fourth innings there was a slight invariable bounce, which kind of made it difficult for batters to chase, and that's where England kind of struggled. But again, you're right. Credit to England on that
Yeah.
on a fourth innings pitch to go out there and almost make a match out of it. That's something that we don't see. And England's philosophy is completely opposite to what teams believe. Right? Teams don't like chasing anymore in Test cricket. And I think that's also because of how difficult it has been lately to bat. A lot of
Yeah.
batters have had issues. I think except for
Mm.
Dean Elgar and one more batter, I think every other batter has had their average fall since the last 5 6 years. So that's where teams don't like to chase, but England is an opposite
Yeah.
to that. is an exception to
It's
that,
going
and
to be
that's the
interesting for this English team as to who's going to be in the team once Johnny Bairstow returns. Is it going to be Harry Brook or is it going to be Johnny Bairstow? Because Harry Brook is definitely a temporary fit in instead of Johnny Bairstow. But I'd really like to see them both back together. It's going to be insane to see Johnny Bairstow and
I
Harry
think
Brook back
Johnny
together.
Bairstow gets a. I think the only way Johnny Bairstow comes back is if you ask Johnny Bairstow to play basketball on the top of the innings with Ben Duckett, because Zach Crawley has
Yeah,
been struggling a lot. So I
I
think
think
that's
that's
the
going
only
to be
way.
the
That's
best way.
probably what they'll do
I
because
think I think it's going to be a double-edged sword. If it comes off, it comes off because he's already an opener. So I think
yeah.
there's a lot of time for him to succeed. But at the same time, if it doesn't, it doesn't because he's been scoring runs in the middle of the order.
But I mean, what is the lose, isn't it? Because Zach Crawley isn't really contributing as much. He
Yeah.
is stuck between Bass ball and Alistair Cook ball. I don't know where he's going really.
I mean, yeah, that is one way to look into it. But then I really appreciate this English team, man. Since the time Brendan McCullum has taken over, this team is playing the most extravagant Test cricket which I've seen in this generation, and this is a revolution which is taking place right in front of our eyes. Maybe 10 years down the line, we're going to be talking about the template in Test cricket as to how to play the game. Little did you ever know you'll be talking about a template in Test cricket, but that's where the game is heading to. And in order for Test cricket survival, I think it's very important as well. On that note, I think we'll end the live right here. It was a
But we
pleasure
need to
taking
take
you.
this one question from Kapil before we end. I think
Yeah.
we will about the
I think we'll take.
umpiring.
I think we'll take the comments before we end the live.
Yeah.
Just like okay, he's talking about the umpiring basically as to how bad it has been. Yeah, as we mentioned, umpiring has been awful, and we've been talking about it on almost every cricket live of ours because it's something which is concerning, and it's been concerning to a point where you really have to react, and something needs to be done. And
But okay, the umpiring was poor today, but I also think the decision making from the captains were poor as well. Steven Smith
yeah,
not taking a review in the first over when Rohit Sharma was out twice, and then Rohit Sharma messing up with his reviews. I think you'll have to give some sort of the blame to Jadeja as well, a part of the blame to Jadeja as well. But yeah, I mean Rohit Sharma was not at his best with the reviews as he is quite often. And I think Steven Smith, other than the reviews, I think he did a spectacular job as the stand-in captain in Pat Cummins' absence. He rotated the bowlers well, and credit should go where credit is due. And I think the way he brought in, okay, Mitchell Stark did not pick up a wicket, but the way he brought in Stark as soon as Akshay Patel
Yeah.
and the lower order
Yeah.
came into bat, I think that was
Also,
good captaincy.
credit to
That was
him.
learning on the
Yeah.
run.
I would
That was
say
Credit to him for
Smith's
giving.
captaincy has been slightly more better than Pat Cummins because he's thinking from a batter's perspective as to what the batters are going to find
No,
difficult.
I think Pat Cummins has
And
been off. Honestly, I think Pat Cummins
yeah,
was really off in the
I
first
think
test. Second test, he did
Asian
a better job,
conditions,
but
Asian
still off.
has a better experience as well in comparison to Pat Cummins. So that also adds a little
Yeah.
bit of advantage when you're captaining an Australian
Yeah, I
team
mean, he's
because
also captain IPL teams as well, so he knows how to go about it at least. And when just talking about what Kapil Verma said, for me, I believe I still will stick to what I said a long time back when it was during the World Cup. I believe giving deduction on match fees or match ban as such isn't a good idea because while he's trying to compare between a bad behavior from the players, I think in this case, Nitin Menon has not behaved badly as much as his performance as an umpire is bad. So I think the way you treat umpires is the way you treat players if he's not doing well. If KL Rahul doesn't do well, you drop him. Same way if Nitin Menon is not doing well, you tell him to go back to domestic tournaments and perform and come back.
yeah, that makes absolute sense. And also at the same time, I don't like this particular concept of one umpire throughout the course of the series because I think Nitin Menon has been the umpire throughout the series, which is not the right way to go
Virat
about
Kohli
it.
will
I think
definitely go with you.
yeah, he's just tired. I think Menon is just tired, and he should just
Yeah, I really
hang
hope
his
that is
boots
not
for
the
the
case
time being.
because once that starts happening, that is going to create a lot of issues, and that the confidence level of the umpire is only going to go down as well.
See, if you did
Similarly, when
not
we talk
have the
about
review system, if you did not have reviews right now, I think the umpiring in this game in particular was as bad as the monkey get scandal test in way back in 2008. I think there was
makes
some
sense.
howlers, and there has been some howlers in this game as well. Just think
Yeah.
about the fact if reviews wouldn't have been there, I think umpires have got more than 50% of their decisions wrong
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
in this
Fox
test,
Cricket
which is
would
bad.
not have skipped a beat to start comparing between Steve Buckner and Nitin Menon because things
Yeah.
could have gone really bad if not for Australia's errors in
Yeah.
DRS. I think it
I mean,
was
similarly,
spot on.
even India had to face the brunt of it. It's just not Australia. I mean, for example, the Ashwin's decision. I know there was not a lot of appeal, but then at least something could have gone your way. As an umpire, you need to be on your feet, especially in pitches like this. I know we've been giving way too much of leeway to umpires as to, oh my god, they are also humans. It's very tough to umpire under pressure. But come on, man. If we can criticize the players, I think umpires also deserve equal
I
amount
think
of criticism.
2023 has been one of the worst starts to the umpiring in general, because you have seen howlers even from the third umpires, which shouldn't be the case at all. You have had
Yeah.
2 or 3 decisions where the third umpire has completely messed it up, and I
Yeah,
think
I mean, talking about Ananda Padmanabhan, he's one of the
yeah.
umpires as well who's been making a lot of mistakes. I mean, in particular, Indian umpires have been having a horrendous time throughout the system. I really think Indian umpires really have to work hard. There should be a particular training method, at least, as to how they can enhance their skill. Decision
No, I
making is
think
hard,
it's also
definitely
about
hard.
accountability, isn't it? It shouldn't be that if Nitin Menon is doing such a horrific umpiring, then he should be allowed to still continue at the international stage. He should be told, okay, your umpiring is not up to our standard, up to international standards. We need you to go back. We need you to do again perform in domestic tournaments and come back till we have some confidence in your umpiring. I think because umpiring becomes such a key part, not just in international cricket, even in domestic cricket. I think Indian domestic cricket umpiring is horrendous. It's not even up to the levels of what you see something like a Nitin Menon do. Nitin Menon is one of the best umpires we have in terms of what we see in domestic tournaments. And most often than not, if such umpiring standards continue, then it really destroys a player's career. A player might be looking in highest of forms, and he
Yeah.
might be on the verge of selection, and umpire Howler has to send him back. So these are the things where you need to put some sort of accountability. I wouldn't say go to the
I
extent
mean, it
of
also comes down to the very inception of how umpires are being elevated into the system and how they're getting elevated into international cricket from Tier 1, from district cricket, from to state cricket, from state cricket to your IPL, and from IPL to international cricket. I think that elevation process in itself is very questionable. I think there needs to be a better system which needs to be put in place, because when we talk about poor umpiring, the scanner is always on the Indian umpires, because they are the bad ones out there among some really good ones. So there's definitely
And also,
something
I
really
think
wrong with the Indian
talking
umpiring.
about the traditional umpiring system, I think you guys covered it in the earlier parts of the live, that umpires like Alim Dar or Asad Rauf and also Simon Toffel, or go back to all the old school umpires when there was no reviews, they had to put in the hard yards. They had to go into the next sessions and stay with the players, practice, and then just try to make decisions in the next sessions itself, to sort of get a better hold of or better understanding of how things are going to go in the actual game. And
Yeah,
with the introduction of the DRS system, the review system, it's all good, but the dependence on the review system or the DRS system has made the umpires lazy. You talk about
yeah,
umpire nowadays, umpires don't go to net sessions, don't
mm,
go to practice sessions and watch the action unfold and practice their skills over there. You have them just coming out there anything. Just talk about the dismissal of Ravichandran Ashwin today. The umpire did not have any clue. The third umpire just like went to the I mean the square leg umpire went to the third umpire for the stumping, but it turned out to be a catch. And the third umpire started with the catch procedure. So this has made the umpiring process, the job of the umpire and the square leg umpire, very easy. And I think that has made a lot of umpires very lazy and reluctant to go out there and put in the hard yards. Once they get selected, I think they think the job is done.
I mean, I'm pretty sure we're going to that particular phase. We might have VAR kind of system, robotic system, even in cricket,
Yeah.
and I think that could solve a lot of issues. I know there's a human part which still holds a lot of relevance in cricket, but I think we have to be perfect, and that human error is something which can actually decide a lot of things. If there's a mistake, there's a mistake, right? If it's hitting the stumps, it's hitting the stumps. I don't think there should be any leeway in terms of that. And robotics or VAR and AI is the only way in which we can actually go further into sport. And I think errors have been good. It was fun while it lasted, but now it's getting to an extent where there are biases, there are your own feelings, and form, especially even as an umpire, can get to you. And
yeah.
that's what I feel umpires like Nitin Menon, Ananta Padmanabhan, and a lot of them in Indian system have been pretty bad. And I really hope it changes pretty quickly. We'll end our live right here. I know I told this 10 minutes ago, but we got into another conversation because of Kapil, but thank you for that question, Kapil. It was wonderful taking that as well, and all the other questions as well. A lot of them have been on my hair, so I'll just take it once. She says best thing about Boomer 11 is Abel's antics with his hair. I come on different lives to see styles change. Okay. Uh, and what else do we have? Joking guys, you're amazing. Like Abel, Lil Abel, new single name Boomer Boy. Okay, thank you. Uh, okay, that's it. That's it, guys. It was wonderful to have you all, and we'll be back tomorrow after the day two of the match if the game is still there, or else we'll be reviewing the test match. In whatever way, we'll be back tomorrow evening and see you all there. Take care and have a good time, all of you. Bye bye.
Yeah. Good night,
Bye bye,
guys.
guys.